Today's Black History Month person is Michel-Basquiat. Jean-Michel was a black artist that started off doing graffiti and then became a famous painter based in New York City. He's a personal favorite of mine, so I wanted to share a little bit about him in the hopes that it might spark some interest in some of you to choose him for your Black History Month project. Jean-Michel Basquiat was born December 22, 1960 in Brooklyn, New York. He only lived to be 27 years old and ended up dying of a drug overdose in 1988. We'll talk a little more about that later. His mother was Puerto Rican and his father was an immigrant from Haiti. His mom spoke Spanish and his dad spoke French, so Jean-Michel was trilingual and spoke English, Spanish, and French. Jean-Michel got started in art as a kid. When he was 8 years old, he was hit by a car and had to spend a long time in the hospital. To help pass the time, his mother gave him a copy of the book Anatomy of the Human Body, which had tons of visual drawings of the human body, and it sparked an interest in drawing for Basquiat. When Basquiat was a teenager, his parents split up and caused some instability in his life. His mother ended up being admitted into a mental institution, and Basquiat struggled in school and actually was homeless for a good amount of his teenage years. In high school, he began doing graffiti with some of his friends. He created a character called Samo that he would spray paint all across Brooklyn and New York City. He also would spray paint words and phrases on buildings that could be characterized as anti-establishment, meaning he would criticize society and those that held money and power. In the early 1980s, Basquiat began to paint, and his artwork was featured in some of New York's art galleries, which propelled him into notoriety. Here on the left is one of his first paintings that was untitled, but most people call it Skull. As you can see, his artwork was a mix of the graffiti culture he grew up in and the punk scene that was starting to emerge in New York City. The painting on the bottom right was another early work of his titled Flexible. In it is the black figure with a crown on their head. This figure and the crown would be seen in many of his later paintings. Earlier I stated that Jean-Michel died of a drug overdose. Friends of his said that Basquiat struggled with the pressure of being one of the few black painters in a white-dominated art scene, and he turned to drugs to handle the stress of the racism and the pressure he felt. This is one of his last paintings titled Riding with Death, and he died shortly after creating this artwork. I've given you a really brief overview of Jean-Michel Basquiat, and now I would like to simply just share some of his artwork without talking about it. But first I want to share my personal favorite. This painting on the left is titled Red Kings. I personally love the deep red hues and the golden crowns that sit on top of the heads. But another reason why I like this painting is its connection with one of my favorite rappers, the Notorious B.I.G. On the right is the last public picture taken of Biggie Smalls. The photographer purposefully wanted to pay homage to Basquiat's Red Kings, so he photographed Biggie in front of a red background with a golden crown. So take a minute and enjoy looking at some of Basquiat's artwork. I hope it inspires you to look further into his life and his creativity.